Hey everyone, welcome to PintheQ podcast. We are at episode 9 in North Plainfield, New Jersey, which is Somerset County. I keep wanting to say Middlesex County.
I know.
Everybody
says that. Yep.
Yeah, so we're in Somerset County, and the house with the white fire engines.
Yeah, it's one of our original colors when we went to a motorized apparatus back in the 1920s. It was one of the original colors.
That's awesome. 1920s. That's a long time. A lot of tradition here.
Yeah, the department was founded in 1903.
Awesome.
And we've been here ever since now. I remember when we did our 100th anniversary. I'm a member of that. How awesome is that? That's just incredible. Yeah.
Those are good memories, and you're obviously going to take that with you, and that's
Sure.
You're part of the tradition here now, which is
Yeah.
really, really important.
Yep.
So I'm here with Lieutenant Reedman. James, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Oh, let's see. Lieutenant here at North Plainfield Fire Department, assigned to A platoon. My captain is Captain Pongratz. I got on the job here in 2001, July 2001, and it's just been one great thing after another. I mean, there's some ups and downs, but when I look back on it, the scale of it all, it's just been an up. It's just been the most positive part of my life.
That's
being
great.
a member here, yeah.
And unless you're involved in this, it's difficult for people to understand from the outside looking in how important this is, how huge this is.
Yeah.
The people you meet, the networking, just like we're doing right now.
I remember being on my honeymoon and meeting someone who knew my mentor.
Oh, that's
and
great.
we were in St. Lucia. He's like, oh, you know Ron Canterman? I said, yeah, I worked with Chief Canterman. Just couldn't believe that we, just interconnected like that, thousands of miles away.
It really is a small world.
It is getting smaller by the minute.
And it seems like our network is even, as small as our network is, it's pretty big.
Yeah.
We meet so many different people, and we're fortunate in that respect.
Yes.
And it's funny. I was looking for an extension cord, and there was one against the wall back here, and I used it, and I plugged in my phone, and the LT started laughing. And what did you say to me?
It's just amazing when you're comfortable in the fire service. You can just walk right in and start, just grab the extension cord, plugged it in. Didn't even ask, which is fine.
Right.
It's totally fine. But that's the kind of, when you walk into a fire station and they open the doors to you.
Right.
You can go anywhere. You can walk in, have lunch with the guys, whatever. It doesn't matter. Volunteer career, it's an open house almost all the time, which is awesome.
And that's what's truly great about this. It really is a family.
Yeah.
I remember when I was young, I was 19 years old. I was in New York City, Engine 55, walking past, and the brothers were outside, standing there. And, come on in. It wasn't no hesitation. Come on in. And I told Miles I'm a fireman and stuff like. Oh, come in. She gave me the tour of the house, and it was great. Being that young. And, I mean, obviously when you're that age, you're soaking it all in.
Yeah.
So
I bet you it's like that around the world. I'd like to try that one time. Go to a London firehouse, or even somewhere in Japan or something like that. Just check that out.
It's funny.
I bet it is.
You watch. I'm sure you watch on Facebook. You'll see everyone post pictures of wherever they're at around the world. They have a picture of standing before the firemen somewhere.
Yeah.
At a firehouse somewhere.
Grab the T-shirt and go. Yeah.
It's good. It's good stuff. So LT, how'd you get involved in this?
Well, actually, I have to blame my father on that one.
Okay.
I was about 14 years old. He was talking about joining up, and he did. In fact, his first big fire was on my birthday later that year after he got done with the fire academy. We both went to the same fire academy, Piscataway.
That's awesome.
And he invited me over to the firehouses. Do you want to come over and detail his truck? Which was that was his thing. That fit his meticulous attitude. So I went over there. I think we must have cleaned that rig until my fingers bled. It was just incredible. But I loved every second. I loved the fact that I was doing that with my dad, which is always cool.
Yeah.
But I loved the fact that we had something to show at the end of it. So that was my first real indication of what hard work really can produce for you. So I loved it. I mean, he brought, and I didn't notice it first. He used to grab all the old toothbrushes. What the heck do we need that for? It was an old Mac, so on the outside skin of it, it had all these big Phillips head. Well, I had to clean all the wax and compound out of each of the Phillips head.
Wow.
This thing looked better than it did when it came off the showroom floor. It was incredible. And that got me hooked into it.
But I love that because he's instilling pride into you. At a young age.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, through thick and thin, that's just something that is, much respect for my father for that.
And is your fire? He was a firefighter here.
No, he was a firefighter in Piscataway.
Okay.
Both me and my brother and my father both started out on Possum Town Volunteer Fire Company. It was
Okay.
literally 2 blocks from my house.
Right.
So, I could run there, for whatever, if I had to run there. But it was nice having that. And it was the center of the town for my entire life when I was a kid. I'd see that same Mac that I cleaned up.
Right.
Riding around town, the guys hanging off the back of it. I'm like, man, that just looks cool. That just looks cool. So it was always in the back of my mind, but I think when I went to go and speak to, when I went with him that day to the firehouse to clean it for the parade, I got launched into it. I'm hooked.
Yeah.
I'm hooked. And my grandmother said, she says, if he gets a little bite of this, and she was right. She says he's going to be hooked for the rest of his life.
It's funny. Everyone I interview or run into they all say the same thing.
Yep.
As soon as they get that hook in them, there's no coming off. It's just you're on forever.
Yeah, it's hard for me to say if it's a calling. I don't know if that's the right thing to it.
I think it is the right call. I agree.
It just fit. It really just fit for me. So.
And then how long were you on Possum Town?
I was on there. Let's see. I started off as a cadet. I became after fire school in '92. I became a full-fledged firefighter in '93. So January, I graduated in December. Started in January of '93, and that's really when my career started. My job started there. So I was there till about '96, '97. Then we moved to Bridgewater, and I was on Green Knoll for a while.
Okay.
I missed those. They're great guys. Station 2. Oh, they were the best guys. There's some people that you don't get to pick who you work with, but you have to make it work.
Absolutely.
And that's what we do here. It doesn't matter what the problems are between. Everyone has to work. But when you have that click, it makes a big difference in how it operates. So I miss them. I miss them a lot. But, the way life turns out, I wound up moving down the shore, so I couldn't, I had to resign respectively. But I miss them. I miss them a lot. They were good guys.
Anybody there in particular that come to
Eddie
mind?
Smith, Joe, God, there was a whole bunch of them. One of the guys he passed away just recently, Mike Galay, Chief Galay. He's a firefighter out of Pennsylvania, and we first started talking. Actually, he wanted to talk to me about getting a career department there and how that would operate. He was so grounded. He wasn't like these hyper-ventilating kind of individuals in conversation. He was really laid back, and he took a lot of facts and made a very judgmental call and everything. So I've always respected him for that.
That's great.
But he was a big loss to that town. He passed away about a month ago.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to lost your brother.
Yeah.
So after the volunteer fire department, where did you go to the fire academy in Piscataway? Right?
I went to Piscataway. I started in the fall of '92. But because my birthday landed on the weekend that we were supposed to do all the so you already know where this is going. We were able to use the saws and everything like that. So I was able to put the SCBA on it. Already had the practice on the training on it. So I remember my instructor Coyote was like, "We're gonna have a good day for you, kid." And I got beat up really bad that day.
That's awesome.
Really, really bad. They found the biggest guy in the I think it was on North Stelton. He had to weigh 300 pounds. And here I am, like, soaking wet, weighing like I think it was like a 140 back then. And I'm trying to drag this guy out. And I'm hearing him laughing as I'm trying to drag him out of this maze. But it didn't discourage me. I just wanted more and more of it. So, I knew I was in the right spot.
That's that buy-in.
Yeah.
That's
a great way to put it.
That hook,
Yep.
So, it's interesting that you can recall all these events as a young man going to the fire academy. You're obviously an instructor now.
Yes.
So tell me how different it was then, going to the fire school. What were some of your experiences? Were you kind of prepped a little bit because you knew what you were going to do?
It was more hands-on than it was classroom.
Right.
I mean, we certainly had our classroom. Just the hazmat chapter alone was one chapter.
Right.
Now it's several. It's a lot of dramatic differences between that. So just on the curriculum alone, it's expanded dramatically. I mean, I can't even. And just some of the things that we didn't talk about. Like I was down in Wildwood recently, and I never thought in my lifetime I'd ever see body armor for firefighters. But now that's a reality.
Yeah, me either.
Now that's a reality. Now we have to consider that. So we're putting more and more weight on. Whereas back then, when I went from the Scott 2As, the things that weighed like 30 pounds.
Oh, I remember that.
Yes, yeah.
With
the elephant nose, and we had to practice breathing through.
Yeah, you put the
through
elephant
the
nose
gear.
inside your gear. Your
Yep,
coat.
we had to learn that. Yep, we had to learn that. And
we're showing our age, you know.
yeah, exactly. So
hip boots and long coats.
So the next thing was the SCBA's changed, so they got lighter, and that helped us.
Yeah.
I think that helped, but then we've started to add more and more weight. But you know, we're dynamic. We're constantly in flux. There's I don't think you can even compare an academy now to 5 years ago.
No, I agree.
The curriculum changes that quickly.
And it's good to see so much progression. You know?
Yeah, the science is there to back it up, which is even better.
Right.
So there's a lot of more lab testing going on.
And I think it's important too that individuals realize that you have to be careful where you're getting your training from.
Yes.
Especially now more than ever.
Yes.
Right. I mean, and I'm not knocking any one specific, you know, platform, but you can go on YouTube, and you can pretty much just type in anything, you know.
Sure.
Positive pressure ventilation, you know, you can whatever it is you want to see, and you got 25 people explaining the same thing but in different concepts. So which one do you pick, right?
Yeah, you know, we were just talking about this yesterday in training because we do a lot of RIT for Plainfield, and one of the things that I mentioned to the guys was, you know, there's multiple ways to train something, but the one that you're going to use is the one that you train the most on.
Right.
So, you know, there's 10 ways to cut cut a car for extrication, but the one that you practice is the one. So whenever I have that conversation at the academies, you know, when we talk about cutting roofs and things like that, I say to them, what's the one that you practice? And if they don't have one, I said, well, let's pick one. And that's the one you're going to go with. Make it your SOP. But if you practice that, that's the one that you're going to always fall back on. And they're not all wrong. The thing that worries me most about that situation, like I was 21 years old, I was asked to be an instructor, and I turned it down. And the reason being was I had 3 fires under my belt.
Right.
What am I going to teach someone?
How are you going to stand in front of a group and say, oh, this is how you do it, and this is why you
exactly.
do it?
I can read the book and you know, throw it back to them like verbal diarrhea, but it's not going to, there's no substance to it.
Right.
So I have no real life lesson to add to that.
And I love that you said that because that's exactly how I feel. I mean, I have a long time on, 27. So when I look at an individual, I want to know who you are.
Right.
I want to know your history. I want to know your background. I want to know your experience.
Credibility, trust.
You might be a great public speaker.
Right.
You might be able to, you know, recite the whole book to me front and back.
Yep.
But if you haven't actually applied that knowledge that you're giving me, it's difficult for me to buy in.
Right. And it shows up in the practicals.
Absolutely.
It'll show up in the practicals.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you mentioned North Plainfield. So here we are. Tell me a little bit about the way we operate here in North Plainfield.
Well, things have expanded quite a bit. We've experienced some growing pains over the last 15 years. We're now, our maximum shift is captain, lieutenant, and 4 firefighters, and we have 2 full-time EMTs.
Okay.
That's on our best day. Sometimes we'll have 3 per diems during the daytime and 2 at night, maybe 1 or 2 at night. But for the most part, our full staff would be about 11 people, not counting the staff captain, the chief, and the deputy chief.
Yeah, so you have a lot of supervision here, which is nice.
Yes. Well, I mean, we needed that expanded control once we started putting more and more people on, especially with EMS, the more and more calls that we cover. You know, the captains were going to be inundated, so that I'm not speaking for the chief, but to me it made sense. We needed lieutenants to fill in those roles.
So I noticed that the pieces here say fire rescue, and you're doing EMS too? We're doing
EMS. The engine, as a matter of fact, from yesterday and today, the truck went out even on an EMS call.
Wow.
Engine 1 went on like 3, I think, this morning, and 2 yesterday. And since 3 o'clock this morning, we've been running EMS runs.
Non-stop, right?
Non-stop.
That's great. Keeps people busy.
Yeah, I mean, we like the busy part. It's what, you know, if Sundays or things aren't that busy, you know, it kind of makes the shift long.
Right.
You know, so we try and break it up with some training in between, so it makes it more interesting.
So how did the EMS come about?
Well, that came on way before I started. It started I think it started in 93. Don't quote me on that. I actually don't know. Might have been 93, 94, but they came on. They were running steady day shifts, and the squad in town couldn't handle the daytime calls, which is a common problem back in
all,
like
all
the 90s.
over Jersey.
Yep.
All over Jersey.
Yep. So, so they created the EMS part of our department, and it expanded up. In fact, our patch changed. So we went from, I have it on this one. We went from regular North Plainfield Fire to Fire Rescue. And
Okay.
actually have a thing up in the captain's office explaining, you know, the steps of when that happened.
Oh,
and
that's
when we
neat.
changed
Yeah.
over. Yeah, it was pretty cool. I think Captain Smith was the one that set that up. And it has expanded when the mayor had done away with the local rescue squad to handle. We started taking over to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Oh, so the mayor had something to do with that.
The mayor, I believe, had a lot to, in you know, forward progressive thinking.
Yeah, it's good.
Decided that, you know, I've already got a resource here. Why don't
Right.
I expand that resource? And, you know, with the council's blessing and, you know, thankfully, again, forward progressive council, we've moved on to this, and it was a good symbiotic relationship, and things have expanded.
Right.
And even the training, the people that we get in here, they're better caliber of people that we have coming in.
Yeah, I noticed right away that, everyone's cleaning, checking equipment, and listen, I know it's not just 'cause I'm here. This stuff happens all the time.
Yep.
You can just tell it's a clean house,
Yep.
well managed. Everybody's happy.
Yep. Yeah. There's always something going
Yeah.
on. 2 engines sounds like it just got fired up.
I know. That's good. Yeah. So, if you notice this episode, the audio is great, and the reason is it's an old building.
Yeah. Well, the section that we're in was built about several years ago. The area where 2 engine is was beyond the back of this camera. That was built in 1937. That
Wow.
was during, I believe they call it was the New Deal. Roosevelt was giving out money. Well, maybe not Roosevelt, but
Yeah.
everyone was putting money back into the economy so that we could get America working again.
Right.
So, what this firehouse, from what I was told, the original built in 1937, was the product of that. So it was a very simple, plain Jane, firehouse. But I
Right.
mean, it's our home.
But I love
it's
it
changed a
because
lot.
it's got it's got a lot of character.
It does.
You know,
It does. Well, brick makes that happen.
Yeah, yeah. I guess that's what it is. It's the brick and the stone, everything
the pole hole.
looks sharp.
Everybody
Yeah,
loves the pole hole.
Everyone loves that. Yeah, I was actually in Passaic, and I wanted to go down it so bad, but it wasn't happening.
It wasn't happening.
All these insurance this, insurance that.
It takes away the life of fun of
It really
everything.
does.
Man. Sucks the
I
life
probably
out
would
of
have
you.
broke my neck though, so it's probably a good thing I didn't do it. But.
And you only have to do it wrong once. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, so the fire department's doing EMS. I mean, that seems to be a trend now. A lot of fire departments
It is.
just are going that way.
Any students that I have in my academy, when they come through, if they want to, I always, the first time I get a chance to talk to them, I sit them right in front, say, tell me why you're here, and kind of like how you opened up the show. And I kind of get a little feedback. And the 2 things I have to tell them is, if you don't have your EMT, get it. If you got your paramedic, great.
Right.
Obviously you're going through Fire 1 and Fire 2. For our academy, they go through Fire 1 and 2 consecutively, so they get it all out of the way, which
That's
is
good.
nice.
That's really good.
And plus they have the pro boards and IFSAC, so they can, whatever states that accept it, they're out there, which is great.
That's progressive.
Because of that, I explained to them, everybody wants to be a career guy in New Jersey, but jobs just aren't there all the time.
No.
I said, but
It's difficult.
look south.
Yep.
And every single student of mine that has gone down south, and a couple of kids from Green Knoll that I explained to them, the last one I told them, I said, you need to get down south.
Yeah.
All of them picked up first shot.
Awesome. You
Every
talk about
time.
like the Carolinas.
It was actually
a lot of companies in Carolinas,
Maryland,
too.
I think it was. I think all these guys went to, the ones from Green Knoll, I think they all went to Maryland. But some of them have
Yeah.
gone to the Carolinas and picked up some work there.
Yeah, if you're young and you got nothing holding you back, tying you down.
Yeah, why not? Why wouldn't you go? Yeah.
All that experience.
Yep.
Nicer weather.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan. I was born on the wrong side of the
Yeah.
continent.
I woke up
just
this
don't
morning,
like
it
the
was
cold
18 degrees. I'm like,
here. No.
yeah.
Just no.
And of course, the traffic is always fun too. That's a good time.
Yeah.
287 is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Parkway's fun. Not really. So outside of the EMS, you have a Quint here.
Yep.
And
2 engines.
2 engines. And then we have 3 Embos here.
We have actually 4 in stock, but one of them
Okay.
is, she's an old girl, so she's not holding together very good. And I wrote a lot of calls on that ambulance.
Right.
But yeah, we've added a few new rigs to it. One we got like as a corporation donation with Greenbrook, if that's even the best term for it. And then we just recently bought one. You saw Rescue 505.
Right, that's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's comfortable, and it's actually more comfortable for the patient in the back,
Right.
which makes all the difference in the world.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know, the old Rescue 1, that thing was, it's a tank. The only time that thing, honestly, the only time that thing was ever a smooth ride was when I had a 400-pound patient in the back of it.
No kidding.
You wouldn't think of putting that in any of these other.
Now, is that a
ambulances.
bariatric rig now or no?
No, it's not.
Okay.
No, it's not. We barely got that person in there, but hopefully they're doing better. That was years and years ago. But
Hopefully. So what hospital do you go to? What facility transport?
well, we used to go to Muhlenberg all the time until they basically shut it down as an ER. So now it's more like a.
That's where I was born.
Oh, really? Hey, you know what? My mom used to. She graduated from nursing school there, so well, who knows?
Yeah,
maybe she did a rotation in there. Who knows?
Maybe she did.
Most of the time now it's, and we used to call them just Somerville or Somerset Medical Center, but it's Robert Wood Johnson, Somerset,
Oh, okay, right,
Robert
right.
Wood Johnson, New
Right.
Brunswick,
And that's in Somerset, right? This
Somerville,
town. Somerville,
yeah.
yes.
And then we Overlook, and then of course there's JFK out in Edison. So
Right.
those are really the primary hospitals that we respond to.
So how does it work? The tour commander figures out who's doing EMS that day, who's on the engine, who's on the truck.
Yeah, through rotation. I mean, our assignments are the same pretty much all the time. I may take a call from him if he's busy on something else. So he likes to delegate a lot of work during the day. So it's really great working with him on that.
That's great.
I never know what I'm going to walk into every day, which is
Right.
great.
It changes things up too.
It does. It
Yeah.
does. The routine kind of has a downplay on it. So I try and change it up. So we rotate the people through the apparatus. And it keeps everyone sharp as to how they're driving. Some of these guys are way better drivers than I'll ever be.
Right.
No matter how hard I try, they're just really good. Joe being one of them.
You need those guys.
Yeah,
man.
when you have a
need a
chauffeur
good
that's
chauffeur.
that good,
Yeah.
it's just amazing. Mario, unfortunately he wasn't here with us. He was vacationing yesterday. But as an officer, it makes your life that much easier. I don't think they understand how much better my life is.
Oh,
I can just focus on the incident and not about all the other little stuff that comes up.
I'm in the seat too. So
Yeah.
when you get when you're on the fire ground and you don't have to look back at the apparatus, so make sure you're
Yes.
getting water, make sure the truck's properly
Yes.
placed,
Yep.
make sure you're getting the equipment you need, and a true chauffeur, you have water before you're ready for it.
Right.
And I've worked with a couple of chauffeurs like that where you're at the knob, you're just waiting, and then I've also been with some chauffeurs where you have water before you even get to the knob.
Yeah, that's great. That's one of the things Captain Beatty said for me when we had the fire over on 22 for where Absolute used to be. I would gauge how far they think they were going. If I didn't get a radio call, they were getting water no matter what.
Yeah.
So I gave them a little bit of time.
Yeah.
What it would take, I think, for two guys to bring a hand line in there. You're getting your water now. It couldn't have worked out better. So when you work with people that long, you kind of complement each other really
Absolutely.
easily. Yeah.
So you have three on the engine.
Yeah, at the very minimum, we try and keep at least 3 on the engine.
And 3 on the truck or 2 on the truck.
Most times it's 2 on the truck.
So explain to the viewers, because there's firefighters watching right now that maybe have 6,
Yeah.
8 firefighters on the rig. Explain. Now I understand it, but I love when other people talk. So explain how you do it with 2.
Well, let's say like a room and contents fire.
Room of contents. Yeah.
Believe it or not, the quint's going to be dropping the supply line depending on where the hydrant is
Right.
comparative to the structure. And then once we drop the supply line, we don't actually make the connection. We'll have either the rescue, if they're, they have enough training. Like some of them are not firefighters, some of them are EMTs.
Right.
But we do utilize them when we can.
And when you say rescue, just so everybody understands, it's
The
about
ambulance.
the ambulance. Right?
Yes, the ambulance.
The BLS ambulance.
Yes.
Okay.
So they may make the connection for us. And it's turning a valve. It's really not that difficult.
Right.
We drop our supply line, and I'm essentially the backup and or the OV at the same time
Right.
for the primary lining. We don't necessarily have a event team
Right.
up until Plainfield shows up.
Okay.
So on a structure fire, we'll have an immediate general alarm with Somerset County on our communications with them. They're immediately calling Plainfield for us for an engine in the truck.
So your first alarm assignment, Plainfield's coming.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And they send a
depending
squad
on-
or they send an engine?
They send an engine and a truck.
Okay.
At the very minimum, we try and get their truck.
Yeah.
And we put them right to work. We don't.
It's right here. Right?
Yeah. You drove
I
right by
passed-
this morning. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, on my way here, I passed a tower ladder there doing their equipment checks.
Yep. Yeah.
So I was like, wait a minute,
And we get a chance to work with them all the time. I mean,
Right.
some shifts get a chance to. We're really busy with inspections, so we try and work with them as much as we can. But we're always seeing each other at least a dozen times each shift.
Right.
You know, whether we're going over there, they're coming over here. So there's a lot of give and take as far as training is concerned. You know, building up a lot of trust, which is like half the battle.
And
You know,
listen, it takes a lifetime to build a good reputation and
Yeah.
a minute to drop it, like get rid of it, just like that.
for them to trust us to do the RIT operation, I know it's a boring setup, but for them to be comfortable with you, to be able to be in that position, because when it hits the fan, we're there, and I'm very happy that they trust us with that.
Yeah, in my own, my own opinion, I just feel like you shouldn't even be considered for a RIT team unless you have at least a minimum of 5 years firefighting experience.
Yeah, there are a lot
Minimum.
of people, I've heard that before, I
You know?
agree, yeah.
Like our company, we take it very seriously. We train twice a month on just RIT outside of our other drills, and but we cover a lot of towns for RIT, and
LBI, you said
yeah,
something,
we cover the island,
That's
and
a
I'll tell
big
you,
area to cover.
and they rely on us, and what I love about our company is when we get off the rig for RIT, there's no bullshit and there's no messing around, no horse playing. Everybody's in full gear. We're ready to go. Saws are started. Equipment's ready, tested. We're ready.
Yep.
And people joke around, call us garden gnomes and all like that. But you're right. When shit hits the fan, you need to make sure that you're ready to go.
Yep.
You need to be 100% of the time. There's
Yep.
no time for failure there.
Yeah, and it's I think it's more self-discipline to be in that role,
Absolutely.
to do the RIT, because there's no glory in that.
No.
Until you're called. And then it's all
you
work.
and you hope you're not called.
You hope you're never called.
Right. That's the one
Absolutely.
assignment you don't want to do.
Right.
That's
Absolutely.
But it's difficult sometimes to get off the apparatus and be assigned as a RIT team, and you want to go to work.
Yes. Yeah, I mean,
Everyone else is working.
There's always a lot of stuff that we can do. I mean,
Right.
we'll force gates, doors, things like that maybe the truck might have missed, but we're setting ourselves up for success is what we're doing.
Absolutely.
So within the first 5-10 minutes that we're there, throwing up ladders, obviously, I mean, it's not going to look like Boston's job, but it's going to be it's going to be set up strategically for wherever they're working inside the building. And
Boston's got it together, man.
Oh my God,
they got it together.
Ladder companies. I think that's the only thing holding up the building is the ladders.
That's good. Now in Plainfield, there's a lot of row houses, right? Row homes.
Yeah, we have a lot of. We have a few small ones ourselves, like a couple on Grove Street, but they have a lot of common cockloft building issues
So
with
your
that.
exposures are huge, right?
Oh yeah, and we've had a couple of those. In fact, the first fire I had with this one. What year was that? I was my first acting assignment.
Okay.
First structure fire as an acting assignment.
Nice.
First time I think this rig actually went to a working fire and was used as a bona fide truck. Kika was my driver, and it was awesome. I'm too tall to see out the other side, but when we pulled up on the building, I was like, just nose it in. And Phil looks at me and goes, we're backing this thing in so we can get the full reach. I said, I trust you.
Awesome.
And again, working with him that long, I knew that, and he didn't steer me wrong at all. Set it up, brought my crew up. Pat Lanzone was actually a callman here before he got hired on. So, he was my go-to guy to get all the equipment up there.
Right.
Made our inspection hall. I mean, it just could not have been better.
Yeah.
It's just, and when you work with other departments and they trust you with that,
Yeah.
that kind of job,
And trust is
it's great.
It's difficult to earn.
No, it is, and it only takes one shot to lose it too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And back to what you were saying before about having a really good chauffeur.
Yes.
Not everybody's doing that.
No.
Not everybody's backing into your driveway
No.
or making, you know what I mean?
No,
It's a skill.
When I was driving around, that's all I wanted to do because I knew that would make me a better lieutenant or a better captain before they made the lieutenants. That's where I wanted to go. And it some of the guys that don't want to be officers, I kind of look at the senior guys as like the sergeants of the shift.
Right.
They have that command and respect from as much as the officers, but it's just that common sense, wise attitude that they have, that their words have weight, and their common sense is great.
And they should. They absolutely should. So, tell me your best experience so far in the fire service. What's your best?
Best experience. had to have been that first acting job.
Okay.
When I did that call, when I mentioned to the chief that I was thinking about being an acting officer, at that point I was running EMS all the time. I was finally back on shift, so I was learning to be more of a shift guy than I was being steady days on the ambulance. And I was doing inspections, but I had done that for many years before, so that stuff was natural to me. But I was like, I need something a little more challenging, something to bite into this time. So I said, I want to try my hand at acting. And I didn't really know, and I wasn't going to jump in full force. If it failed for me, so be it. If it didn't, at least I tried. And
That's
when
half the battle is just trying.
Exactly. So when I got that job, there wasn't anything from the moment the alarm went off to the time I got on the radio and called us in service to the time I called us back in service. I loved every second of it. And It was stressfully challenging, but it was fun.
Yeah.
It was absolutely fun. That was probably one of my best days here.
It's funny that the more experience you get, the more fun it is.
It is.
Because at the beginning, like you just said, I'm glad you said it. It's so stressful.
Yes.
Right? You have
it's
so
good stress.
It's good stress. But
Yeah.
You have so much going through your head. You're like, oh, okay, I need to check this. I need to check that. I got to watch my crew. I got to do this. There's so much going on.
Yeah.
Your head's constantly spinning. But the more jobs you get under your belt, the more comfortable you become.
You'll hear it in the tone of the operations from the individuals. So when you listen to the radios, if someone's calm on the radio, they either it's not that bad or they've been through a lot of these calls.
Right.
When I'm teaching classes at Union County Fire and we talk about radio communications, I always say to them, I said, the dispatcher really sets the tone for the entire operation.
I just said this the other day. So
yeah, it really does.
100%.
We had a
100%.
fire on Washington Avenue. My first fires with Captain Smith, long before he retired. I think it was like the first time I was on the shift. And the dispatcher, when he called over on the radio, I thought he was yawning. He was so relaxed. And we're all sitting there going, is he for real? Yeah, is this a real job?
Yeah.
And sure enough, the chief was the first one on scene. He goes, yeah, we got working fire between Division 2 and 3. And I was like, whoa, okay, here we go. So
Going to work.
we're going to work, yeah. And back then, we were only riding with, I think, 4 people total.
Yeah.
On our best day.
That's when you need to. Everybody has to definitely be on the same page.
Yeah.
Especially running that short.
I was pulling ceilings in a plaster lath with a Halligan. That was a tough job. 'Cause you can only carry so many tools with it.
I know.
We had to force doors and make our way in with the line.
That's great. So you became lieutenant. Tell me about that.
Yeah, we had acting officers, and pretty much all the acting officers made lieutenant positions. They've all had at least 3 or 4 years experience in there. So obviously 4 platoons, 4 lieutenants.
Right.
And when the last of the captains left, Captain Sadlon, after that was when they started making the lieutenants. And I think it's worked out. I worked on D platoon, then I got transferred to A, and I've been here since. And it's great. I just go in. What assignments you got from me aside from inspections? I got all this stuff, And even Captain Connolly, who was my first platoon commander, and especially Captain Pongratz, it's can I do this? Can I do this? Sure, no problem. He's willing to give me a little bit of some work, but he's not going to take it all away. He's still the captain, but
Right.
I like the fact that he's willing to give me the chance to at least step up and try a few things, which is fantastic.
A real leader will always delegate.
Sure.
If you harness everything, that's not a good thing.
Yeah, micromanaging gets nothing.
It absolutely does not.
Gets nothing at all.
And it kills morale.
It does. Think of the experience that you're not having for your people behind them, And one of the biggest hurdles was, quite a few jobs in Plainfield. So if a personnel is at a certain level, like 6, we can actually send a lieutenant into Plainfield.
Okay.
Because we have to at least leave a driver back for the captain.
Right.
But bottom line is, there's, again, the progressive attitude of the department. We can make this happen. And, it's in just about everything that we do, we can see the push forward to make things better. So lieutenants are getting the experience that they need. Obviously, they're likely to be the next captains. And that attrition is going to work really well for this department down the road.
And it helps everybody else coming up underneath them.
Sure.
That's something to look forward to.
Yep.
So you, when we had spoke, you told me about this incident you were involved in, right?
Oh,
The crash.
the crash.
Right. So
yes.
if you could walk Walk me into that.
Well, that one was back in 2006, May 8th, or March 8th, 2006. We were riding all day. That day was just stressful from the get-go. I mean, we were running all morning. I mean, from the time the tapper went off, I think we even had an alarm before the start of our shift. Barely ate lunch. I think we grabbed some cookies and sodas at Somerset, and we were on our way back from hopefully our last call. We left at 4 o'clock and we got dispatched for an MVC. And at that time, you can't take 22. I mean, it's just a parking lot.
Yeah.
So Joe, being my driver, who I got hired with at the same time, me and Cadell were hired the same day. And we're riding down through Middlesex, and we get the update that, you need to step it up. This is a really bad call. So we're like, Joe looked at each other like, oh, God, this is not the way we want to end the day. So we responded as quickly as we could. 4-engine was responding in to do an extrication, but we didn't really get much information on that. But what I pulled up on, you can never really prepare yourself for it. And I've even talked to my students about this when we talk about the health and welfare for firefighters. But when we got on location, seeing another officer trying to punch his way through a windshield, I mean, if that just doesn't get you in the feels, you need to check your pulse. I mean, to this day, I can still hear the glass breaking as he's punching, trying to get into this car to get to his brother. That was the toughest scene I've ever pulled up on. And I've seen lots of bad calls. Not to say that any of them were someone may have died, and it's a struggle, but we
Right.
accept those things.
Right.
We're all adults. We accept it. Our time here is limited.
Yep.
So I get off the rig, and I said, Joe, I hate to do this to you. I said, but I could probably RMA these kids on the side or refuse medical assistance, because they looked like they were in pretty good shape. As luck would have it, I think it was an Atlantic ambulance, was actually coming around. I don't know if they were buffing the call or what, but I just flagged them down. I snapped my finger and said, you guys are on duty for us right now. I said, you guys can take care of this. I got a trauma patient over here. And they were like, sure. They're EMTs. They want to work too. So they came in, they took care of the patient for me. By the time I got over there, they got the officer out of the car, brought it over. I remember looking at one of the medics who I worked with. He was a grungy dude. Always had like never shaved. But he was a sharp medic. I learned a lot from him. And when you work with people that much, it's interesting that there's no the nonverbal cues. We don't have to speak to each other.
Right.
We knew it was over.
You can just look at somebody.
Yeah. Not one word was said. So brought him in the back of the ambulance. By that time, the chief of Watchung Police Department, a sergeant, and the plainclothes officer put him in the rig, got him set up so he's, professionally as we could. And I just said to the chief, I said, our rig is now your rig. And we, as a rule, you never pronounce anyone in the back of the ambulance. But this day was over. This was it for me.
Right.
Stepped out of the ambulance. I remember Sabrina, one of our officers here, she just got on not too long before that. I made it to the outside of Rescue 1, actually. And I just remember, she said, you okay? And I said, just waved her off. I just collapsed. Just all my energy was just sucked out of me at that point.
Yeah.
No control over myself. It's just, I just fell apart. Just broke down, just completely broke down. Just couldn't control anything. Just wave after wave after wave. I mean, it got a point, and this is how I made a contact with Greenbrook. There was I think he's a sergeant now, Goldstein. He came up, and he's like, do you want me to call your family or something like that? Like, it's just overwhelming the amount of support that you get from this. And Captain DiPaolo actually was, after we brought him in here and, we did the exchange over with the morgue. And,
So that was done here at the firehouse?
Yeah, they backed him in and they moved him over to the next, whatever the morgue was going to use to transport. Obviously, I have to do an autopsy and all that stuff.
Right.
But it was all done in honors. So they moved him over to that. I was still I couldn't control everything. So DiPaolo was by my side. My union president was there. Whew. It was a tough day. It still is. It still beats you up a little bit.
How long ago was that?
12 years.
Yeah. So
12
12 years later, you're reliving it.
Yep. Yeah. And whenever I do the class, we talk about CISD in health and welfare in the Delmar books, or Jones and Bartlett rather. That was that was, I guess, more of me trying to get past that healing point. I shared it with them. I mean, I lost it then too, but it showed the realism. There's nothing that can prepare you for that. Nope. That right there is the line. When you have that one bad call, it's either going to make or break you.
Yep.
And you're either going to be able to handle that, or you're not. Yep. And when you don't, which I didn't handle it very well, I just carried it along in the wrong way.
Right.
I was angry, bitter. To me it seemed fine. I took a couple days. We did the CISD again. Chief, very progressive. He said, "Don't even bother coming in tomorrow, but you're coming to the CISD." And I was like, "I'll be happy to go to that." At the time I was doing Taekwondo, martial arts, so that helped a little bit of the stress.
Right.
But there was always that background noise of just anger, and I couldn't really place a finger on as to how I got that. But I guess I just never thought that this was what caused that. I never wanted to feel like that, like I did that day. I can't stress that enough. I just didn't want to feel like that. So anyone that was in my way, I either went through them or around them. And this is the best time to bring up Albert. Albert was one of our best firefighters. He was the best guy to have as a mentor. Took everything that I learned, him and Captain Smith, when they took me under their wing on their platoon, said, "Okay, this is what you've been doing. This is how you're going to do it, and try it out and see how it works." And they didn't just say it's because I'm going to do it. It's because we can show you that.
Right.
So there is that background that sticks to it. So Albert, as loving as a guy as he is, and everybody knows him, he's one of the funniest people that you ever had the chance to work with. It got to the point where he was like, "Come on over here," and he's like, "I love you, but if you don't calm down," he says, "I'm going to take you out back and kill you." At that point, I don't know what it was, but snap. Okay, I was like, "Oh, Jesus, yeah," And then he's like, "Take a few minutes. We'll talk about it later." Back and forth. It took a few more years, and one other person, Jessica, she's a friend of mine for a long time. I ruined that relationship, friendship, because I just didn't want to feel like that.
Yeah.
And it was, you never look, and I guess the bottom line that it should go, which I think when I look back at the episodes you have, especially with the chief from South Wall, when you look back at yourself and you realize that you're the problem.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest thing, because it's easy for me and you to critique each other, and we can learn off each other real easy and fast. But to be able to see yourself as part of the problem, that's extremely difficult to do.
Self-evaluation is difficult.
Yes.
It really is.
Yeah, so when I got that feedback from those two, I mean, Jess, she, fantastic person, still is. Albert, unfortunately we lost him a few years ago, but I take that with me, and I pass that on to whoever I think needs it,
Yeah, it's important.
Yeah, it is. And it's once I realized that was the issue, and I could, perspective is everything. Once I realized that was the problem, I was able to actually start bringing it in. They said I was bitter and angry to the people I work with here, and they all know. They all remember what I used to be like. Joe always jokes around, and he's still, but those jabs are what I need to make sure they keep myself focused, because they're my best resource. I can't lose them.
Absolutely.
I can't lose them. Family and friends the same way.
And you discussed pulling up a scene a police officer who was killed in a crash. We're all on the same page and definitely on the same team. And when you see something traumatic like that happen, you're gonna feel that way.
Yeah.
I mean, and how important was it for you to talk to people about that incident and the crisis intervention team? How important was that to you to attend?
Well, one of the medics, I believe his name was Steve. I haven't seen him in a long time. I think he went on to be a doctor. But he was a member of that CISD team. And I got to talking with him about it, and I understood it a little bit more. But again, I brushed it off, just didn't really accept it as a problem.
Me too.
And the Southwell thing, it was he was saying that he drank a lot. Well, I was more of a social drinker.
Right.
I never thought, and I guess my own ignorance was, it was always more of a drug or an alcohol issue, but it's not. It's a behavioral thing too.
Absolutely, yeah.
It really is. So once I realized that, then almost threatened to get beat up by this pit bull over here. It brought me back to earth, and then I realized that it was me. And yeah, like you said, you reach out to the right people. Once you realize what the problem is, you know who to talk to, and
Right.
you also, surprisingly, who you don't want to talk to.
Oh, yeah.
And people that need to be eliminated, that are that negative to you. So it's to this day, it's still a work in progress, but
Yeah.
it's better than it ever was.
Good
And
for
I'm
you.
I'm glad that they helped me out. Those are two great people.
Yeah,
Two
good
great
for you.
people.
And just so you know, before I do this, I always do some research on my own.
Okay.
And everyone I've talked to all said the same about you. You're a squared away cat, good guy. Looking forward to seeing you on film and all that. So
Must
whatever
have
you're
been one of
doing,
my students that passed.
yeah, whatever you're doing, it's working.
I appreciate the feedback. The one chief, or it was a deputy chief actually in Scotch Plains, they had set up an operation where they were pouring water through the side of the building without evacuating it first. They were setting up for a deck-on operation. And I ripped into them. And I felt bad about it. But then he comes back and he says, no. He says, you know what? He says, that's exactly what I needed. So, I wish I had talked to him afterwards, immediately about that, instead
Right.
of just like ripping into them.
Yeah,
There's a time to be a drill sergeant. There's a time to be
absolutely.
an instructor.
Absolutely.
And, he taught me that, from that conversation. But, he's like, that's what we needed. He says, I got to shock these guys into reality. And, it's a give and take. I learn a lot from those crews also, too.
This isn't like you have a bad day selling a tent.
Yeah.
People die here when you make mistakes.
Yep.
And you have to be like that. That's important. I think it's extremely important to be like that.
Yep.
So I'm sorry to hear that you had the experience that call. I'm glad to see you got out of it, and that you're teaching others, and that brings me to my next point. So you're an instructor at the Fire Academy.
Yeah, Union County Fire Academy. I've been there since '07, I believe.
Tell me what that's about for you.
Well, like I said, I could have jumped into it back when I was 21. No experience behind it.
I respect that, by the way.
Thank you.
I do. I
I
respect
really
that a lot.
do. I really do
Not
believe.
too many people are going to turn it down.
Right, and back then, it probably would have been easier. I'm sure over the time I would have had the experience, but I was worried about the people that I would have been influenced back then. What could I have said the wrong thing or say whatever. I don't want to. I take that very seriously. Yeah. So I stayed out of it, and I got as much experience in many different areas as I possibly can. So, fire official, fire instructor, and also subcode. So I got involved in all that stuff. So that's everything that I can pass on. So when we talk about fire alarm systems, as an example, whenever we do those classes in sprinkler systems, I inspected these things. I was issuing red cards when they failed, and I know exactly why they failed and why they passed.
That's awesome.
So I had that knowledge, but
Right.
could I have just said, sprinkler system, wet system? Well, what's the difference between a wet system?
Dry system, yeah.
What's the chamber up here? It's the retard chamber. It's there was a lot of meat to my conversation with the class, and the students can feel that way. I mentioned the dean that hired me at the time. He said that if you don't know what you're talking about, they will sniff it out very quickly, even if they don't know nothing about the subject.
Especially today.
Especially today.
Things can be vetted like that.
Yes.
And you just go to the Google.
Yes. And I always, anyone that I ever see that I read before the internet, when we actually read magazines.
Yeah, remember that?
Yes, I do remember that. We still have some of those up there. I think they're
Magazine.
archives. Yeah,
Fire
Firehouse
Engineering.
Magazine, Fire Engineering. I would actually look up whatever information I could about those individuals and say, okay, Carter was one of them. He was he was a battalion chief out of Newark. He was a guy with the bow tie.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
he had a lot of information.
Yeah.
But then, everyone has their, like you said, pros and cons. But his information was up to date, so I respected the information that I got out of him. So at that point, the chief, Chief Eaton, was saying that, or I'd asked him, would it be okay if, I started doing some training here in classes? Absolutely. Again, progressive, forward thinking. And we got to the point where, I was able to get the time that I needed in, went to some of the classes. I really liked it, really, really liked it more. Thought I just wanted to do the classroom stuff, but then I took the the safety class,
Okay.
to be able to do the live burns at DGI, they call it now.
Right, right.
And I was like, I dig this even more. Like now, I want both. So we went through it, and he submitted to the state. And next thing I know, I'm like, okay, I got it for here. Now where am I going to go? So one of my old mentors from back in college, I have an associate's degree from Middlesex County for fire science, Chief Canterman. I was his intern at Merck and Company. So that was where I got my first draw for not only training but also for fire prevention and education. Right. Brought me into that, and I had asked him, I said, if you can think of an academy where I could go, where would you go? He said, I think you'd be a decent fit for UCFA. So phone call was made. I called him up, and it was funny. The interview for that job was no different than this. We talked about calls. We must have talked for like 2.5 hours.
That's great.
And just out of nowhere, Captain Modrak, who retired out of Linden, he's like, yeah, you know what? Reaches in his pocket, pile of keys, just rolls it across the table. I think you'll fit in here. You can start next week. You're going to have to follow this one instruction. I'm like, so I'm hired? He goes, yeah, you're hired. Well, you don't hear anything? And I was like, it's just the weirdest interview I've ever had. But it was intense because he wanted to know, can I actually contribute to? And I didn't realize it. It was all nonchalant talking, but there was, did you know about this?
They were listening.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. So it was great. And it's actually almost a crime to work there. It really is. The people that I get to work with there, Johnny Zyke, Spina. Spina is like a legend. The guy's, I think he's like in his 70s. He runs circles around anybody.
That's cool.
I mean, he's just incredible. Wealth of knowledge.
Lifer.
Yeah,
I love it.
That's definitely him. Tony Tiller, I think, still works there a couple times, and Mark Chai, our rescue guy, and the list goes on and on. It's just great, and they've made me a better officer because of that. When you walk in that door, you are their de facto officer for the time that they're there. You're their first, supervisor when these students come in there. So it helped me a lot.
Would you say for you it's a passion more than a job?
It is definitely a passion. Because I don't feel like I've worked when I go to the academy. I really don't. I may be tired and all that stuff, but I just feel like, I gave everything that I could, and I'm very satisfied with that.
So there's certain people, throughout the fire service, throughout their career, they say, this is what I'm giving back. I'm giving back. Is this your give back?
Yeah. Yeah, and it one of the drives actually was, what happened with Officer Melchionda. That pushed me a little bit in that direction because I needed something to direct some of that energy to.
Right.
So what would be a positive? I picked up guitar playing. We talked about before, I like to go to the range. It helps me relax a little bit, focus on certain things, and disappear from certain things. But that really was my best, most positive outcome from all of that. Is I focused most of my energy into that. And I did as many classes as I possibly could just to get comfortable in it.
So, tell me some of the challenges that you face now as an instructor in 2019.
I'm going to need a drink for this one.
I mean, not that there's any challenges, right? There's no challenges now.
Well, the challenge is mostly the attitude.
Yeah.
It really is. Again, a second-hand story, probably the best time to tell this one. There was a student who was getting critiqued by one of the instructors. Again, they're all very fair individuals. And this student, whether being a wise ass or not, basically just raised his hand and said, and I think I remember who it was, but raised his hand, was like, do we have any safe spaces here? Wrong mistake to say that to one of these guys. He says, yes, sir, absolutely.
He didn't say that.
He asked, he says, do you have any safe spaces here? Just whether he's being wise or not, doesn't matter.
Right.
The instructor, not missing a beat, said to him, it's on the other side of the fence. Go right ahead. Take a walk down the lower road. You'll be safe there for the rest of your life. So take that for what it's worth. Moral of the story is there is no safe space in this job. It just doesn't exist.
No.
There's no place to hide.
No.
There's, if it takes you A to Z of your planning to get, and Z fails, then that's what happens. You have to learn to live with that.
Right.
And that, again, that's just
There's
not
also-
something you can learn in the textbooks.
There's an ultimate end to this
Sure,
if it happens.
if it happens.
I mean, how many brothers and sisters have we lost doing this job?
yeah. I mean,
You know?
the turn of the century. Well, not the 19th century, 20th century. They're losing thousands of firefighters.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I was looking at the statistics with suicides. It's mind bending the amount of firefighters and police officers that were losing to suicide.
Listen, when I did that podcast with Tremer, Ray from Harrison,
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, I didn't realize either.
I literally sat like we are right now,
Yeah.
and he's reading the facts to me, and I was completely blown away. I'm just sitting there trying to process what he just told me. You
Yeah,
know?
same. I was in the same boat. I had to watch it twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How can it, first of all, how is this happening and nobody knows about it?
Well, I mean, the obvious answer, I don't know if you came to this conclusion, is it's not listed as a line of duty death.
I know.
So it doesn't fit that criteria, and that's part of the problem.
I know.
It's a cultural issue.
Yeah.
And one of the great things about the fire service is we have a means, anytime we have a problem, so obesity was a big problem, cardiac being a problem, still is, but we're working on it. Seatbelts. We basically bastardize ourselves in saying, you need to do this, and we make it a part of every routine that we do. So you saw the gym, a couple guys here used to be a little heavier, in much better shape, probably in better shape than me right now. I mean, but everyone is working out, everyone is doing it for the benefit of everyone around them, including the citizens. When we change the culture, more than any code, more than any standard, the culture changes everything. And it has staying power.
Yeah.
People are almost guilted to not be a part of that group, which is great.
And unfortunately, there's some people you have to guilt.
Some people,
You know.
yeah. Some people you're just not going to get to, and
Right.
unfortunately but I think being that health and safety is now such a big deal in so many
Yeah.
chapters, trained so hard in especially in New Jersey, that you're going to have those. I think that culture has a good footing. We have a good rooting system here.
We do. I think things are definitely moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, when you're bringing this CISD and
Oh, yeah.
the mental health aspect to it, this is the rooting. You're really digging into the roots, and you're laying out this foundation. So that was part of what drew me into this conversation. Was I wanted to be a part of that.
Yeah, and when we spoke, when you were talking to me about the academy and you were telling me some of the stories, I'm like, I just had no idea that was even going on.
Yeah, well, I'll share a couple of them with you if you want to just
Please,
jump right into that.
They absolutely want to hear this.
The one student that I have nothing but respect for, again, I'm not going to say who he was, but big dude. I mean, you this is where you'd want this guy to be on. You want him to be on the truck. He was a big guy.
Right.
He made 2 rungs up the ladder, and he yelled a bunch of expletives. Obviously, I won't say on here. But he said, "Sir, I can't do this." Blah 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 blah. Squirted out a bunch of expletives, and I was like, "Okay." I was, I'm not going to be the drill sergeant here. I'm going to try and coerce him. I said, "Dude, we will do this together. I will do everything I can to get you up this ladder." He says, "I cannot do this." I respect him for that. Absolutely respect him for that. He understood that there is you may have to climb a ladder. Just because you're on an engine company doesn't mean you're going to walk away from the ladder.
No, of course not.
And these are all volunteers too, so you don't know what rig they're going to be on, so they don't know what jobs they're going to get assigned to all the time. So he understood that. To this day, a lot of respect for that kid. And then you have other kids.
Did he bail out?
He bailed out, yeah. He bailed out a long time
Right
ago.
decision.
Right decision for him. I don't know if he went anywhere else. I don't really keep track of the students afterwards, but
Either can
he
or you
had
can't.
the potential. Yeah, he had the potential.
Right.
Just that one hurdle, he just could not.
Right.
Fear of heights, and I totally understand that. These kids. This one was directly with me. I dismissed the class. They had done a whole bunch of quizzes, and they were starting. One of the things I like about our academy is we quiz them just about every week,
That's
so
good.
so that we can see that they're retaining. It's not just for the students, but we can also see we need to push a little more effort this way. They're failing on these subjects. It gives us a good gauge as to how we're going to work our students, and it's a good teaching tool. But if they're doing so badly, they get dropped from the program.
As they should.
As they should. and they know this.
Yeah.
And, you know, everything's all up front. So I had about 5 students, maybe 6, that were not really doing so well, and they were complaining. Just, I mean, anything they could complain about. Life isn't fair. The instructors were mean to them. It was, Instructor Reedman was rude, and he raised his voice, and I felt uncomfortable, and it just, well, I raised my voice at you because you were going to get yourself hurt, and I'm not allowing that to happen.
I don't mean to laugh. I just,
but it's
crazy.
Hindsight being 2020. It is funny. At the time, I didn't laugh. Believe me.
Yeah.
Believe me. I'm sure he got a couple earfuls from me, but when they sat there and I let them, have their say on it. They talked for quite a bit. Well, we were there half an hour, and I just turned around and pointed to the sign behind me. I said, "Read that sign." And I said, "Read it together." So everything we do together. So I read it and said, "Not everyone has what it takes to be a firefighter." I said, "I have never failed one student at this academy." I said, "You're given this amount of information. It's my job to get that information to you as quick as I possibly can, and under the circumstances that I'm given, with whatever tools that I have available. That's my job, and I take my job very seriously."
You never failed anybody. They failed themselves.
They failed themselves, and that's what they never noticed. So to answer your question in a roundabout way, kind of like what I had learned, through the officer passing away, but I always knew that for all the other training stuff. You and I can take blunt, criticism because we know what the outcome is supposed to be.
Right.
They want the best for us. To me, it seems more and more students, not all of them, but a scary majority of them are getting to that point where it's like, they're victimized by this. How are you victimized? I didn't ask you to join. You came because you think this was a calling. And that's when I start reminding them at the beginning of class. Yeah. Your father was it, your grandfather, whatever, they were shoeing horses back then or what. They got involved in the process and you were sold on it and you didn't do it.
Right.
You lost it. You failed yourself. You didn't fail me.
So there is a challenge.
There is.
There's a challenge.
And it's going to be, I don't see it changing anytime soon. But again, that goes to the culture. I can't change their culture in less than 3 months or 3 months and a few weeks. I just can't.
Without using names, and I know you can't, but was there anybody you ever saw and you're like, there's no way?
Yeah.
There's no way they're making it through.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, they present themselves literally on the first week.
Right.
The first time that they do any training with the SCBA and donning and doffing and PPE training, right then and there that they're just not going to pick it up.
Right.
They're just not going to get it.
And does anybody come to mind that impressed you in the academy? So one person that really just...
Yeah, actually, I saw him on a job in Plainfield about 2 years ago. I can't remember. He'll probably remember if he ever watches this. He'll probably remember. He's on Cranford.
Okay.
I apologize, kid. I forget your name. Kid, he's bigger than me. He can bench press a Volkswagen. But he'll know who I'm talking about because, one, he's on Cranford, but he also met Clint Eastwood. So he knows.
Oh, so
we talked about
if
that.
You met Clint Eastwood, then you're the
you
guy.
know it is. Great guy, great kid. I'm so happy that he got on Cranford. And there's a payback that I get seeing that. When I saw him, we were at the rehab station, and I saw him there. I was like, I could not have been happier.
Yeah.
Could not have been happier. It just made my day.
And that's what makes it all worth it.
Yes. Yes, it does.
You capture one person.
Yeah. Yeah, and then he's just going to keep feeding that to it. So it's a great spiral. It really is. Yeah.
Well, listen, brother, it was absolutely wonderful talking to you.
I had a great time, man.
I'm so glad I finally met you.
Yeah.
Right? I hope everything for the best for you, man. And,
I appreciate it.
Please be safe. Please be careful.
I promise.
So your daughter's watching, right?
Yes. Lorelei, good evening. How are you? First time, see, Daddy gets on the YouTube before you do.
Yeah. And she was all excited, right? You told me how excited she was.
She made pancakes for me this weekend.
She did?
She's great.
Oh, this weekend. I didn't see any here.
Yeah.
It must have been this weekend. That's great.
Yeah. I really respect what you're doing. And being
it.
here, I just want you to know I support everything that you're pushing through.
Thank you.
You really are setting the roots that are going to change the culture, and I appreciate everything that you've done.
I appreciate it very much. Coming from you, it means a lot.
Cool.
So, So here we are. We are at episode 9 here in North Plainfield. I had a good time. I got to meet some of the family here, which was really nice.
Yeah.
Got to see white fire trucks, which
Yes,
is
yes.
different.
We're
It's
unique.
definitely different. Yeah, it's unique.
And a lot of talent in this firehouse.
Actually, I think Ray Trammer from Harrison, he trademarked unique because
Oh,
he
did
said
he?
it so much in his episode.
Did he really?
Yes, that
I'll
the
have to
guy.
go back into account.
Yeah, the guys in his house were that's what they call him now.
Oh,
Unique Ray.
so I gotta. Jeez. I guess I owe him $1 or
Yeah.
something.
There you
I'll
go.
send it to you.
And I'm wearing his hat too. So
Oh, perfect.
I promise I wear it on one of the shows. So there it is, buddy.
Representing.
All right, so episode 9 here in North Plainfield. This was a lot of fun. Episode 10 is coming at you. He's going to be announced later this week, and look for this one to get released. Obviously, you're watching on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed. It's that little red button down the bottom, and also our Facebook page and our Instagram. Also, I have a new sponsor, which I'm excited about, Chief Miller. Thank you very much for coming on board. I appreciate it.
Congratulations.
And I'm excited to have him on board. It's good. I'm meeting so many great people that are buying into this and being supportive and flow and vent.
That's validation right there.
A lot of good people out there that I respect that are buying in. So I'm excited about that. Episode 10 coming at you. Be safe. God bless. Take care.
Thank you.